Hi, my name is David Chandler. I spent a summer back when I was in college working on the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina, and that's along the Appalachian Mountains, and I have a sense of the area and a sense of the people who live in that area, and I really admire these people, and I have a compassion for them. So here's this enormous storm that comes through and has inundated North Carolina and Tennessee, where the two states come together. And it's a huge area. It's not like Katrina, where it was just a city that got flooded. This is an area that some people I've seen on internet have compared this to the size of the country of Belgium. So it's an enormous area that needs to be rescued from this disaster. I heard, and then I confirmed on the official website, that FEMA is allocating $20 million of aid for this area. This is from just the first of these series of storms that we're talking about here. I think it's important to try and get a picture in your head of what this number means. Big numbers, I think, just go into a fog for most people. I've taught physics and math, but I've taught astronomy at night in night school, junior college, quite frequently. And what you have are adults who are interested in science but don't necessarily have a specific science background, who would like to learn a little bit about astronomy. So these people, they come into this class, and I have found over time that there's a major lack in their ability to comprehend huge numbers. In astronomy, you deal with millions and billions and trillions, and how do you even make sense of all of that unless you have some method of understanding these numbers? So what I use is a meter stick. That's something like this. It's a length that's a little over a yard. It's about 3.5 inches more than a yard. And it's divided into little tiny marks here called millimeters. If I hold it up, the finest divisions there are called millimeters. And then 10 millimeters makes a centimeter. That's where the 1 is, and there's 2 centimeters and so forth. Okay. Let's use this to represent money. So if I take 1 millimeter, that's like the thickness of a dime. That's these finest marks here. If I take 1 millimeter to represent $1 million, then $20 million would be 20 millimeters, or in other words, 2 centimeters, which is where the number 2 is right here. And so that distance is a little less than an inch. It's a little over 3/4 of an inch. So how much is this? If this is $1 million for a millimeter, how many millions make a billion? That question I have found over time among adults who take astronomy classes as they walk in the door the first day. Only about 15%, and I think that represents the adult population optimistically. So only 15% has the grasp that there's 1,000 millions in a billion. So if this is a million, one of these millimeters, this is a billion. So if that's $1 million, that's $1 billion. So when you talk about millions and billions, it makes a difference, a huge difference. So let's compare some of these numbers. $20 million of aid for North Carolina. $8 billion just recently given as a separate aid package by President Biden to Ukraine. It was described as his parting gift to Ukraine. 8 billion here's $1 billion. 8 meters would be a little over 26 feet. I also went back and looked up the annual amount of giving to Ukraine that the U.S. has done. And for 2024, we gave $61 billion. And so this 8 billion is on top of that. $61 billion is 61 meters, which is like 200 feet. Okay? So here's a line of 200 feet representing what we've given to Ukraine this year. 8 meters, which is 26 feet roughly, is how much we just gave in this one single gift to Ukraine, just because, just a little over and above. And 3/4 of an inch is what we've set aside to help the people in North Carolina. Now, in my thinking, what this shows is the money is there. We are not hurting for the amount of money it takes to rescue people. What we can see is we are not allocating our money to rescue people. How much we put into FEMA compared to how much we're giving to Ukraine's military is an illustration of our priorities. If our priorities were to rescue people, money would be no object. We certainly have the resources available if we allocate it for that purpose. If you go on YouTube, you'll find a whole lot of people in North Carolina and that area that are very angry. I think you can understand why.